Ever feel like you're constantly drained after talking to certain people? It's not always what they say, it's what they ask for. Some requests sound innocent, even friendly, but they carry a hidden cost to your peace, time, and self-worth. They want your loyalty, but not your boundaries. They ask for favors, but never offer respect. This isn't about being rude. It's about self-protection. If someone asks you for these 5 things, walk away. When someone asks you to keep a secret, it might feel like a compliment. You may think, they trust me, they confide in me, I must be important to them. But not all secrets are harmless, and not all people asking you to keep something quiet have good intentions. There's a very thin line between being trusted and being used. When someone asks you to keep a secret that goes against your values, your integrity, or the truth, they're not just involving you in their problem, they're making you a part of it. Let's say someone tells you something shady, illegal, or morally wrong, and immediately follows it with, "But don't tell anyone." That moment is a test, not of loyalty to them, but of loyalty to yourself, because in trying to protect their actions, they're asking you to lie by omission. They're placing the weight of their decisions on your shoulders. You carry their guilt, their mistakes, their mess, and in silence. And the more you carry for others, the less you have space to carry your own peace. What's worse is that people who ask for this kind of secrecy often use it as a way to control you. I told you because I trust you. That sounds noble. But what it really means is, I told you, so now you can't judge me? Or, so now you can't expose me. They're protecting themselves by tying your hands behind your back. And if you try to speak up, suddenly you're the disloyal one. Suddenly you're the one who betrayed their trust. That's manipulation dressed up as friendship. You need to understand not all trust is healthy. Some trust is a trap. When someone brings you into their drama, their lie, their conflict, and expects you to keep it all locked up inside, they are not respecting your emotional well-being. They are offloading their burden and making it yours. And many times they do it under the disguise of closeness. But love, friendship, or loyalty that demands you to violate your conscience is not love at all. It's control. Keeping a secret that's hurting someone else, that's not loyalty. That's silence in the face of harm. Keeping a secret that makes you uncomfortable every time you remember it, that's not trust. That's psychological pressure. And people who make these kinds of requests often do it repeatedly. It becomes a pattern. The first secret is a test. If you keep it, they give you another, and eventually you become their vault. But no one ever asks how it's affecting you. No one asks how it feels to carry something you never asked to know in the first place. Eventually, it becomes exhausting. You find yourself stressed, guarded, anxious, because you're holding on to things that aren't even yours. And what happens if things go wrong? They won't take the blame. You will. They'll say, "Why didn't you say anything?" even though they were the ones who told you not to. That's the danger. That's why you need to stay away from people who constantly ask you to keep secrets that compromise your inner peace. You're not a container for other people's darkness. You're not responsible for covering up their poor choices. If someone truly respects you, they won't ask you to bear the weight of their lies. They won't ask you to keep silent in the face of things that could cause harm. And they definitely won't test your loyalty by seeing how much of your integrity you're willing to give up for them. Strong, healthy relationships are built on openness, mutual respect, and clarity. They don't rely on secrecy to survive. So if you ever feel like someone's using trust as a tool to manipulate your voice, pause. Look at the situation carefully. Ask yourself, would I be okay if this came out and my name was involved? If the answer is no, then you already know what to do. You're allowed to walk away from conversations that make you feel heavy. You're allowed to say, I don't feel comfortable holding this. That's not betrayal. That's self-protection. And it's okay, because your peace matters more than someone else's cover story. And if someone gets angry because you refuse to be their secret keeper, that tells you everything you need to know about their character. They weren't looking for a friend. They were looking for a shield. And that's not your job. Let people call you disloyal. Let them say you didn't have their back. You don't owe anyone your silence, especially when that silence would cost you your self-respect. Speak your truth. Hold your standards. And stay away from those who ask you to carry their secrets like chains. Some people will come into your life and make you feel needed, valued, even important. But over time, you'll start to notice that the only time they call, text, or show up is when they need something, specifically your emotional support. They want you to be their sounding board, their therapist, their motivational speaker, their safe place. And at first, that might feel good. It feels meaningful to be the person someone turns to when they're down. But there's a problem when that support only flows one way. You give and they take. You start off being a good listener. You let them vent. You hold space for them when they're going through something difficult. You offer encouragement, comfort, even advice. But the more you give, the more they expect. Soon, it doesn't matter what's going on in your life, because their problems always seem bigger. They never ask how you feel. They don't notice when you're exhausted. They don't check in when you go quiet. They only reach out when their life is falling apart and they need someone to catch them before they hit the ground. That someone, unfortunately, is you. This kind of emotional dynamic is draining because it's completely unbalanced. You're constantly showing up for them, pouring out your empathy, but there's no one there to refill you. And slowly, without realizing it, you begin to shrink in that relationship. You become the person who's always available, always supportive, always understanding, but never supported, never understood. You might even convince yourself that you're being a good friend or a kind person. But being emotionally generous doesn't mean allowing yourself to be emotionally exploited. A relationship where only one person receives support isn't healthy. It's emotional labor disguised as connection. And it's dangerous because it drains your energy, your peace, and your ability to care for yourself. Worse yet, the moment you try to pull back, set boundaries, or say, I can't right now, they'll make you feel guilty. They'll say things like, you've changed, or I thought you were always there for me. What they're really saying is, you're no longer as useful to me as you used to be, because that's how they see you, not as an equal partner in the relationship, but as a resource. And let's talk about reciprocity. In healthy relationships, when one person is going through something, the other steps in with support. But when you have a bad day, where are they? When you need to talk, to cry, to be heard? Do they listen? Do they offer that same safe space you've given them again and again? Or do they brush it off, change the subject, or disappear altogether? Emotional support is a two-way street. It's about mutual care, shared vulnerability, and showing up for each other. It's not about keeping score, but it is about balance. If someone constantly demands your energy, but can't give any back, they're not a friend. They're an emotional burden. And the longer you carry that weight, the heavier it gets. The hardest part is that these people often aren't bad in the traditional sense. They're just unaware, or worse, selectively aware of how much they rely on others without giving anything in return. But it's not your job to fix that. It's not your role to teach them how to be emotionally mature. If they're unwilling to notice the imbalance or even acknowledge your needs, they don't deserve the access they've been given. And let's be honest, you can't be someone's emotional safety net 24/7. You have your own storms. You have your own healing to do. Pouring everything into others leaves you empty. And no one thrives from an empty cup. You deserve relationships where you're not just a listener, but someone who's heard, where you're not just strong for others, but allowed to be vulnerable too, where your emotional presence is valued, not used. Protecting your energy doesn't make you selfish, it makes you wise. Saying, "I can't be your only support system," isn't cruel, it's honest. And anyone who truly respects you will understand that. They'll want to know how you're doing, too. They'll ask if you have the space to talk before unloading everything on you. They'll check in just because they care, not just when their life is a mess. And if they don't, if the only time you hear from them is when they're in crisis, if they disappear when you need them and reappear when they need you, then you need to step back, reevaluate, protect your peace. Because no matter how strong you are, you weren't meant to carry everyone else's emotions at the expense of your own well-being. Your time, your attention, your emotional presence, those are sacred. They're not free for anyone to take without giving anything back. You deserve relationships that restore you, not ones that slowly drain you. So stay away from people who ask for your emotional support, but never offer it in return. You're not a therapist. You're not a dumping ground. You're a whole human being, and you deserve to be treated like one. Some people will try to disguise manipulation as love. They'll come into your life with affection, attention, and the kind of closeness that feels like comfort. But beneath the surface, there's a darker intention. They want control. And one of the clearest signs of this is when they ask you to choose them over your goals, your family, or the things that matter most to you. At first, it might not even sound like a demand. It might come off as concern. "You're always working. Don't you want to spend more time with me?" Or, "I feel like your friends are a bad influence." But over time, the pattern becomes clear. They're not asking for balance. They're asking for you to shrink your life to fit inside theirs. This kind of behavior often starts subtly. It begins with guilt tripping. You tell them about a new opportunity, a job, a trip, a personal milestone, and instead of cheering you on, they act distant, disappointed, maybe even a little hurt. You find yourself saying things like, "It's not that I don't care about you. It's just something I really want to do." But suddenly, that's not enough. You're made to feel selfish for pursuing something that has nothing to do with them. That's the trick. They make your independence feel like betrayal. They question your choices, not out of genuine concern, but out of fear that you're outgrowing the version of you that serves them. When you spend time with your family, they say you're choosing others over them. When you chase your goals, they say you're too focused on yourself. When you set boundaries, they say you're pushing them away. They position themselves as the victim every time you choose to stand on your own. But love doesn't sound like that. Love doesn't require sacrifice of your identity. Real love supports your growth. It doesn't demand that you shrink to stay close. People who truly care about you will want you to have it all. The relationships, the dreams, the life you've imagined. They'll walk beside you, not in front of you, and not behind you, dragging their feet. But people who ask you to choose them over everything else, they're not walking with you. They're trying to own your path. And here's the truth that often hurts the most. Sometimes the person asking you to choose them is someone you genuinely love. A partner. A close friend. Maybe even a family member. But love alone isn't enough if that love comes with strings. If being close to them means distancing yourself from everything else that matters, then it's not closeness. It's confinement. These types of relationships can trap you emotionally. At first, you think you're just being supportive, making small compromises for the sake of connection. You cancel a meeting to spend time with them. You skip a family event because they don't feel like going. You give up on a project because they say, "You've been too busy lately. I miss the old you." And before you realize it, your life has quietly rearranged itself around their comfort and your discomfort. That loss doesn't happen overnight. It happens in pieces. One missed goal, one postponed dream, one ignored phone call from someone you love. You don't feel it all at once, but you do feel it. That small nagging sense that you're not living fully anymore, that you're dimming your light to keep someone else from feeling overshadowed. And eventually you start asking yourself, when did I stop doing the things I love? When did I start feeling guilty for just wanting to be myself? That's when you know something is wrong. Because in a healthy relationship, you don't have to give up your life to keep someone in it. You don't have to choose between your goals and your connection to someone. The right people won't ask you to. When someone makes you choose between them and the things that bring you life, what they're really saying is, my comfort matters more than your growth. That's not love. That's insecurity. It's control. And it's a red flag you can't afford to ignore. You were not born to live someone else's version of your life. You were not meant to abandon your dreams to soothe someone's fear of being left behind. The people who truly deserve a place in your life will never ask you to walk away from the things you love. They'll stand beside you while you chase them. They'll push you forward, not pull you back. They'll be proud of you, not intimidated by your growth. So the next time someone asks you to choose them over your family, over your goals, over your passion, pause. Ask yourself, what kind of love is this? Because if that love costs you your purpose, your joy, or your future, it's too expensive. The right people will never force you to choose. They'll remind you that you don't have to. When someone asks you to lie for them, you might feel like you're being a good friend, a loyal partner, or a supportive family member. They might say things like, "It's just a small lie," or "Can you cover for me this one time?" And because you care about them, because you don't want to let them down, you feel tempted to agree. But the moment you say yes, something shifts. You've crossed a line, not just for them, but within yourself. Because lying for someone doesn't just affect your reputation, it affects your character. It pulls you into a world that isn't yours and makes you responsible for something you never chose to do. Lying for someone means borrowing their guilt. It means carrying their consequences. Whether they're lying to a partner, a boss, a parent, or a friend, when they ask you to be part of that lie, what they're really doing is pulling you into their mess without owning any of the risk. They get the benefit of deception, and you get the burden of covering it up. At first, it may seem like no big deal. Maybe they tell you to say you were with them last night when they were somewhere else. Maybe they ask you not to mention something they said or did. They call it a white lie, or say it's just to keep the peace. But here's the truth: small lies grow. What starts as one false statement quickly becomes a web of dishonesty. One cover-up leads to another. You begin to feel anxious, like you have to remember the script they gave you. You rehearse conversations in your head. You worry about slipping up. And deep down, you start to feel resentment, not just toward them, but toward yourself for agreeing to something that felt wrong from the start. People who ask you to lie for them are not asking for help. They're asking for protection. And usually, it's not to protect you or someone else. It's to protect themselves. They made a choice, and now they want you to bear the fallout. They want you to be the shield between them and the consequences. That's not friendship. That's not love. That's manipulation. And let's not ignore the long-term cost. The more you lie for someone, the more you become seen as someone who's okay with lying. Your credibility starts to crumble. People may not know the details, but they'll sense something isn't right. You begin to carry yourself differently. More guarded, more cautious, more stressed. And if the truth ever comes out, guess who shares the blame? You do. Because you knew, because you helped, because you said yes when you should have said no. The irony is, the same people who ask you to lie for them will often be the first to abandon you when the truth surfaces. They'll say, "I never told them to say that," or "that was their choice." They'll distance themselves, deflect responsibility, and let you take the fall. Suddenly, the loyalty they demanded means nothing. Suddenly, you're left holding the consequences of someone else's behavior. Think about what that does to your self-respect. You begin to question your own values. You wonder why you agreed to compromise your integrity for someone who wouldn't do the same for you. You feel disappointed in yourself, not because you were too weak to say no, but because you were too strong to watch someone you care about fall, and they used that strength against you. And here's another truth. When someone asks you to lie, they don't respect your honesty. They see your moral compass as something they can bend. They may disguise the request as a favor, but the real message is, "I know you're a good person, and I'm hoping you'll betray that goodness for me." That's not respect. That's exploitation. You deserve to be around people who protect your integrity, not people who test it. People who own their actions, even when it's hard. People who never put you in the position to compromise your values for their comfort. And if someone can't handle the truth, that's not your burden to carry. If they made a mistake, they need to face it, not drag you into the shadows to shield them from the light. It takes courage to say no. It takes strength to look someone in the eye and say, I care about you, but I'm not going to lie for you. That moment might cause tension. It might even end the relationship. But the peace that follows is worth it, because you'll know you stayed true to yourself. And in the long run, your honesty will attract the kind of people who value it, who don't ask you to lie because they'd never put you in that position to begin with. Loyalty doesn't mean protecting people from the truth. It means standing by what's right, even when it's uncomfortable. The people who truly deserve your loyalty are the ones who would never make you choose between your love for them and your respect for yourself. So if someone asks you to lie, let that be the moment you see them clearly, not just for who they are, but for what they're willing to risk in order to save themselves. And if they're willing to risk you, your peace, your character, your name, it's time to walk away. When someone asks for your time, you may think they're just being friendly, needing company, or simply reaching out. And in many cases, that's true. But there's a specific kind of person who doesn't just ask for your time, they take it. They expect you to be available on demand, yet they don't respect your schedule, your priorities, or the fact that your time is valuable. These are the people who interrupt you constantly, show up unannounced, call during your busiest moments, or expect immediate replies as if your life revolves around their convenience. It's not about connection. It's about control disguised as casual attention. They might say things like, "You're always busy," or "It's just 5 minutes," or even guilt trip you with, "You used to have time for me." But behind these words lies an unspoken belief their time matters more than yours. And when you start adjusting your day, rearranging plans, or sacrificing your personal peace to accommodate them, you're entering dangerous territory. You're teaching them that your boundaries are flexible and your priorities can be delayed for their comfort. You may not notice it at first. It starts small. Maybe you pick up a call during work, or you cancel a quiet moment for yourself because they really need to talk. You think you're being supportive, generous, or just a good friend or partner. But over time, it becomes a pattern. You're constantly the one adjusting, rescheduling, staying late, showing up early, giving up rest, and giving in. Meanwhile, they rarely check if it's a good time. They don't ask about your day. They don't offer to work around your schedule. And the truth is, they don't care. Because their focus is on what they need, not what you're sacrificing to give it. Your time is one of the most valuable things you have. You can't earn it back. You can't pause it, save it, or refund it. Once spent, it's gone forever. That's why who you give it to matters deeply. People who respect your time will understand when you're unavailable. They'll appreciate your effort when you make room for them. They'll ask, "Is this a good time?" before launching into a conversation. But the ones who don't, they'll just keep taking. And often, they'll disguise it as connection when it's really just entitlement. There's also a difference between people who genuinely need support and people who just expect access. Someone in a crisis may need more time temporarily, and that's normal. But someone who always has a crisis every week, someone who constantly creates chaos and expects you to show up and clean it up, that's not support. That's emotional dependency paired with time theft. And here's the real danger When you constantly give your time to people who don't respect it, you start to neglect the things that do matter. Your own dreams, your work, your peace, your self-care. You find yourself behind on your goals, emotionally burned out, socially drained, all because your energy was being directed towards someone who never deserved that much access in the first place. It becomes even more harmful when these people don't acknowledge the sacrifices you're making. You skip a workout to meet them, delay a deadline to listen to them, miss out on rest just to be there, and they don't even say thank you. Why? Because they've come to expect your availability. You've trained them unintentionally to treat your time as an open door. But here's the truth. You are not on call for anyone who doesn't respect your boundaries. Start paying attention to how people respond when you say no, when you set limits. When you say, "I'm not free right now," do they respond with understanding, or do they push back with guilt, frustration, or silence? Their reaction will tell you everything you need to know about how much they actually value you, not just your presence, but your well-being. You don't owe anyone 24/7 access to your time. You don't have to explain yourself every time you're unavailable. You are allowed to prioritize your rest, your peace, and your work. You are allowed to put your phone on silent, to say no to last-minute plans, to protect your calendar like it's sacred, because it is. And remember, people who truly respect you won't need constant proof of your loyalty through access to your time. They'll give you space without making you feel guilty. They'll understand that being close to someone doesn't mean being constantly attached to them. They'll respect your schedule, and they'll appreciate the time you do give them, instead of taking it for granted. So be careful with the people who ask for your time, but treat it like it's free. Be cautious of those who drain your hours without giving back even a moment of care or consideration, because every minute you spend with the wrong people is time stolen from the right ones, including yourself. Protect your time like your future depends on it, because it does. The people who deserve to be in your life will never make you feel guilty for valuing your own.